misi Fakultas Kesehatan Masyarakat Universitas Airlangga dalam 5 tahun ke depan dan memperhatikan program strategis Universitas Airlangga Smart University, maka Fakultas Kesehatan Masyarakat Universitas Airlangga juga memiliki 3 tujuan strategis, yaitu rekognisi, kepercayaan, dan bermanfaat bagi masyarakat, khususnya dalam bidang kesehatan masyarakat, serta mewujudkan pembelajaran yang unggul dan berkarakter, peningkatan produktivitas riset dan publikasi, serta pendayagunaan hasil riset yang berdampak signifikan terhadap capaian Sustainable Development Goals.
Join us and make your dreams come true with the Faculty of Public Health Universitas Airlangga. Welcome to the Faculty of Public Health Universitas Airlangga. As one of the pioneers of public health faculties in Indonesia, the Faculty of Public Health Universitas Airlangga has been the point of reference for public health higher education, which give impacts to the quality of life locally, nationally, and globally, based on excellence and religious morality. Responding to the global public health challenges, we provide education with competent lecturers to produce best graduates and professionals in public health sciences and nutrition science who are proactive, innovative, professional, and capable of adapting to the digital era. Its study program and Faculty of Public Health have been accredited A by Indonesian Accreditation Agency for Higher Education and Health. Its public health undergraduate study program's curriculum has gained international accreditation by APEA and international certification by AUN. Five departments in Faculty of Public Health Universitas Airlangga are Department of Health Administration and Policy, Department of Epidemiology, Population Biostatistics and Health Promotion, Department of Nutrition, Department of Occupational Health and Safety, Department of Environmental Health. 9 study programs in Faculty of Public Health Universitas Airlangga are Public Health Undergraduate Study Program, Nutrition Undergraduate Study Program, Public Health Undergraduate Study Program in School of Health and Life Sciences, Universitas Airlangga in Banyuwangi, Public Health Master Study Program, Health Administration and Policy Master Study Program, Occupational Health and Safety Master Study Program, Environmental Health Master Study Program, Epidemiology Master Study Program, Public Health Doctoral Study Program. In addition to academic activities, Faculty of Public Health students are also active in student club activities, such as choir club, basketball club, dancing club, traditional art club, music bands, community service program, and other student activities. Faculty of Public Health Universitas Airlangga provides modern facilities to support academic activities such as computer labs, epidemiology labs, nutrition lab, audio-visual aid lab, environmental health lab, and occupational health and safety lab. Faculty of Public Health has established strategic partnership with top universities from various continents, including Asia, Australia, Europe, and America. The COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated the digitalization in any aspect of higher education, and Faculty of Public Health has applied hybrid learning system to continue its teaching and learning process amid pandemic. Freedom of Learning Independent Campus, or MBKM, is a program of the Indonesian Ministry of Education, Culture, Research and Technology, which supports the Faculty of Public Health in preparing graduates for Industry 4.0 and Society 5.0 era. MBKM is an autonomous and flexible learning process in higher education that cover internship, independent projects, entrepreneurship, and student mobility, either domestic mobility or international mobility. Faculty of Public Health as MBKM Center of Excellence has collaborated and established partnership with other study programs in the university and other universities.
Mengacu kepada visi Fakultas Kesehatan Masyarakat Universitas Airlangga dalam 5 tahun ke depan dan memperhatikan program strategis Universitas Airlangga Smart University, maka Fakultas Kesehatan Masyarakat Universitas Airlangga juga memiliki 3 tujuan strategis, yaitu rekognisi, kepercayaan, dan bermanfaat bagi masyarakat, khususnya dalam bidang kesehatan masyarakat, serta mewujudkan pembelajaran yang unggul dan berkarakter, peningkatan produktivitas riset dan publikasi, serta pendayagunaan hasil riset yang berdampak signifikan terhadap capaian Sustainable Development Goals.
Join us and make your dreams come true with the Faculty of Public Health Universitas Airlangga. Welcome to the Faculty of Public Health Universitas Airlangga. As one of the pioneers of public health faculties in Indonesia, the Faculty of Public Health Universitas Airlangga has been the point of reference for public health higher education, which give impacts to the quality of life locally, nationally, and globally, based on excellence and religious morality. Responding to the global public health challenges, we provide education with competent lecturers to produce best graduates and professionals in public health sciences and nutrition science who are proactive, innovative, professional, and capable of adapting to the digital era. Its study program and Faculty of Public Health have been accredited A by Indonesian Accreditation Agency for Higher Education and Health. Its public health undergraduate study program's curriculum has gained international accreditation by APEA and international certification by AUN. Five departments and Faculty of Public Health Universitas Erlangga are Department of Health Administration and Policy, Department of Epidemiology, Population Biostatistics and Health Promotion, Department of Nutrition, Department of Occupational Health and Safety, Department of Environmental Health. 9 study programs in Faculty of Public Health Universitas Erlangga are Public Health Undergraduate Study Program, Nutrition Undergraduate Study Program, Public Health Undergraduate Study Program in School of Health and Life Sciences Universitas Erlangga in Banyuwangi, Public Health Master Study Program, Health Administration and Policy Master Study Program, Occupational Health and Safety Master Study Program, Environmental Health Master Study Program, Epidemiology Master Study Program, Public Health Doctoral Study Program. In addition to academic activities, Faculty of Public Health students are also active in student club activities, such as choir club, basketball club, dancing club, traditional art club, music bands, community service program, and other student activities. Faculty of Public Health Universitas Erlangga provides modern facilities to support academic activities such as computer labs, epidemiology labs, nutrition lab, audio-visual aid lab, environmental health lab, and Occupational Health and Safety Lab. Faculty of Public Health has established strategic partnership with top universities from various continents, including
Alright, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to meet you all. So my name is Alvin Ubaid Khairi, and it is a beautiful chance for me today to be your master of ceremony in this guest lecture entitled Effective Writing Strategies for a Manuscript, held by Department of Epidemiology, Biostatistics, Population Studies and Health Promotion, Division of Epidemiology, Master Program of Epidemiology, Periodic Epidemiology Journal, Public Health Faculty, Universitas Erlangga. In this wonderful moment, I would like to welcome our speaker, Dr. M.Aziz Rahman, Bachelor of Medicine and Science, Magister of Public Health, Certificate Program in Global Tobacco Control, Graduate Certificate in Higher Education Curriculum, Doctor of Philosophy. In this occasion, I also would like to welcome Dean of Faculty of Public Health, Dr. Santi Martini, MD MKes, Vice Dean for Academic Affairs, Professor Dr. Nyoman Aninta Damayanti, DRG MKes, Vice Dean for Research Affairs, Dr. Muhammad Atoila Isfandiari MKes, Dr. MKes, Vice Dean for Research Community Service, Publication and Collaboration, Mr. Trias Mahmudiono, SKM MPH, GCAS PhD, the Head of Department of Epidemiology, Biostatistics, Population Studies, Health Promotion, Dr. Faryani Syahrul, SKM MFID, the Head of Division of Epidemiology, Dr. Lucia Yovita Drati SKM MKes, lecturers and researchers from Faculty of Public Health, and graduate and undergraduate students from Universitas Airlangga, Federation University, and other universities. All right, so I would like to thank to all of the participants who have already attended this guest lecture, either on Zoom or YouTube. And for participants on Zoom who don't have any problem with internet connection and device, please turn on your camera and use the virtual background on the chat box. And the next agenda, we will sing the national anthem, Indonesia Raya, and continue by singing the hymn of Airlangga. To the committee in charge, time and screen are yours. right, thank you so much. So on this special afternoon, we have several agendas. So allow me to read several sequences of today's agenda. The first agenda is opening, which we previously had together. The second agenda is opening remarks. And the third agenda is the core event, which is giving a lecture entitled Effective Writing Strategies for Manuscript. The fourth agenda is discussion, and the last agenda is closing. Step on the next agenda is opening remarks from Vice Dean of Public Health Faculty for Academic Affairs to Professor Dr. Nyoman Anita Damayanti, JRG MKes. Time and screen is yours.
Ya, terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang, salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Good afternoon, Dr. Aziz, Associate Professor from University of Australia. Thank you for your time to deliver your expertise with us. Hopefully you are stay healthy, ya, Prof, and refreshed after a long trip from Australia. And good afternoon for our Dean, Dr. Santi Martini, and maybe now she is still in event and university, and maybe after she finishes agenda, she will come and join with us. And good afternoon to our Vice Dean of Finance, Vice Dean of Research, Community Services, and Networking. And good afternoon to for all of our head of department, head of study program, and all of our lecturer, and very special person for our students, yeah, and all of the committee. Yeah, thank you for deliver this guest lectures, and especially for Associate Professor Dr. Aziz. Thank you for your time, yeah, and for our student, yeah, we hope we will use this time, yeah, to gain inside knowledge, yeah, about effective strategies in writing articles for publication. Yeah, we know article maybe as one way, yeah, for scientific communication, and now we still improve our ability to do the publication, and we of course your sharing or your share for us. This is very important for us. And thank you for the Department of ABIOP. Yeah, we know ABIOP as an abbreviation of epidemiology, biostatistics, and population, and health promotion. Yeah, thank you. Dr. Aziz as a young professor of epidemiology ABIOP department, and deliver this guest lecture. And maybe beside guest lecture, Dr. Aziz will go to some facilities, health facilities, to prepare. Maybe next year will bring your student to come to our university or our faculty, and this is a very nice news. Yeah, maybe we hope after beside this lecture we can do the other networking or the other collaboration. Yeah, we can improve our collaboration and research and community services, and maybe for the publication. Yeah. Once again, Associate Professor Dr. Aziz, all of us will say thank you to your time and to deliver your expertise. And I hope our students and all of us will use this time to gain insight knowledge about the strategy to write good article or publication. Thank you again, Prof. Aziz. Thank you for the committee, and have a nice lecture. Terima kasih Mas Aziz. Maaf. Terima kasih Mas MC.
All right. Thank you so much to Professor Dr. Nyoman Anita Damayanti DMK MCAS for the opening remarks. Step on the next agenda, which is giving lecture entitled Effective Writing Strategies for Manuscript that will be delivered by Dr. M.Aziz Rahman. And this guest lecture will be led by Mrs. Kurnia Dwi Artanti, Dr. MSJ, from Division of Epidemiology as the moderator today. All right, so without any further ado, to Mrs. Kurnia, time and screen are yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Mas Afin. Hello, Dr. Aziz. Good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Nice to meet you again. And then this afternoon, I get us to as moderator your guest lecture. The title is Effective Writing Strategy for a Manuscript. Dr. Aziz is many publication, international publication, and then Dr. Aziz is one of some journal international. Yeah, this is the qualification of Dr. Aziz. Maybe I will read some from curriculum vitae, like the qualification. Dr. Aziz is Bachelor in the of Medicine of Surgery in the Dhaka Medical College, and then Master of Public Health in the James P. Grant School of Public Health in the Break University, Bangladesh. And Dr. Aziz is get a certificate program in global tobacco control in the Johns Hopkins University in the USA, and then the graduate certificate in the higher education curriculum, teaching and learning in the Lathrop University, Australia. And then Dr. Aziz is a Doctor of Philosophy in Public Health in the University of Adelaide, Australia. As I explanation before, the Dr. Aziz is in the professional association in the some association in the Australia, right? Like a board member of Public Health Association of Australia, and then co-convener in the health promotion special interest group in the PHAA, yeah. And there are so many publications from Dr. Aziz, international publication, and then Dr. Aziz is editor. Nah, this is so many international journal, yeah, like editorial board member in the BMC Public Health, PLOS One, PLOS Global Public Health. I think this is all of the top tier journal, yeah. And then the research interest, Dr. Aziz is his public health promotion about tobacco, include the smoking, smokeless tobacco, vaping or cigarette, and then about non-communicable disease, and then about global burden of disease, and then about disadvantaged population, migrants, like migrants, farmer, First National people. Yeah, I think this is very many activity, and then I think directly maybe I can ask Dr. Aziz to giving the lecture, and hopefully all participants can active, and then if there are question, participant can direct to chat, yeah, in the chat box. Thank you, Dr. Aziz. Time for yours.
Thank you very much, Kurnia, and thank you very much, Alvin and Dr. Newman. I would like to really first thank University of Sri Lanka and Faculty of Public Health, and Dr. Santi Martini, Dr. Arif, and a few faculty members are also here in the room. So it is really a great honor and great privilege for me to come to in here and deliver this lecture. I remember the last time I came before pandemic, in 2019, but it seemed a history like I forgot when did they come. So this pandemic really washed out the 2 years period, and probably this is the first international trip that I made after 2.5 years. So it was really a great honor to come to UniAir in my first international trip. And regarding this relationship with UniAir, I am really honored to continue my adjunct professor position with University Erlangen, and in terms of helping the students and the staff to build their capacity, but at the same time continuing collaboration in terms of research, student exchange. So I am always open to the opportunity where we can work more. And it was really a great honor today when I was welcomed in the graduation ceremony there, and I was introduced with the graduates. So it was really a great honor. So without further ado, let's go to today's topic. So let me share my screen. And as Kuni has mentioned, so you can post your question in the chat box, and later on, I'll be very happy to respond to those questions if someone can monitor this. Okay, so I think everyone can view my slides. So today I'd like to talk about the effective writing strategies for a manuscript. As Dr. Newman has mentioned, that it is a one way of communications, and probably it is the most powerful way to communicate. So what I'm going to say today, I know that there are some faculty members, there are students who are probably really active in writing, but some of the faculty members or the students probably they are not active in writing. So I'll try to give an overview. So some of these things could be very basic, some of these things could be a bit advanced. So still bear with me, and don't hesitate to ask me any question down the track. So what are the things that I'm going to talk today is, the first thing is 6 things to do before you write a manuscript. So we need to make a plan before we start thinking, yeah, we need to write a paper, we have completed the research, but what are the things that you need to consider before you consider writing a manuscript? The next issue is issues to consider for publications, because when we write a paper, we want to publish this thing. Either we want to publish it nationally or internationally. There are some issues that we need to consider, and there are some steps to organize the manuscript. Editorial process, as you have seen, I'm fortunate to be an editorial board member in a number of international journals, public health journals. So what are the editorial process? And finally, tips for publishing in high impact journals, if that is helpful to any one of you. The first thing is, how can you contribute or lead a research paper? Before we go for writing a manuscript or a paper, we need to understand where we can start. So I do understand there are a number of students who are probably doing your bachelor or master's or doing your higher degree research. So if you are studying and if you're in your course, if there is an opportunity for you to publish within your course, within your plan, that's really good. Then you can just plan and proceed accordingly. I do understand there are different differences between the bachelor and the master's and the doctoral qualification, and it's also the different in Australia as well. So sometimes the plan includes that you need to write a thesis, but at the same time, the expectation is you also need to publish. So depending on your curriculum, so if there is already a plan included within your study, so you can just plan and proceed accordingly. But if you don't have a plan, that may be that you don't have anything within your course, but you are really keen to learn this research, you are really keen to contribute to a paper and to have your name included in the publication, then make a plan how to convert it to an article. Probably you are doing a research, it could be a small scale research, but you don't have any plan, or there is no requirement to have a thesis or to have a publication. So what I will suggest you, go back and discuss with the supervisor or mentor and say, look, I want to do something, if it is even a small scale research or if it is a literature review, but I want to get that published. So how can I get assistance in publishing this? And you can start with the newsletter article before you proceed to the journal article. Sometimes it is a bit scary, and it also requires a bit of qualification and experience to publish in a good journal. But the easiest way I will suggest to start with a newsletter article or in the periodical or something local. Start with something local, and even in the newspaper. So try to write some of the health related articles that is your interest. So you need to start writing. When you start writing and you will see your name published in any of the newsletter, that will boost your confidence to think of, okay, how can I improve my publication? So now 6 things to do before you write your manuscript. What are the things? The first thing is think about why you want to publish your paper and whether it is publishable. It's not necessary that I've done a research and everything that we'll do, it is publishable. So remember that you can try to publish, but if you know beforehand, then what are the things that the editor or the reviewers will look at, so you can prepare yourself in a better way. The first thing you need to ask yourself, have I done something new and interesting? The common example that I give to my students, say, for example, you want to do a study whether smoking causes lung cancer or not. So everyone knows this, and what is new there? You can do a study at a certain area in Indonesia, and you say, oh, this study has not been done in Indonesia in this setting. But the finding, it is not new. So is it something new? Is it interesting? So you need to think this question at first. And that is the research question that we also ask in terms of significance of a topic. When you think of a research topic, is it significant? Why we are thinking of doing this thing? Because you also need to think of what is the thing that you are going to add after your research project. If you think, yes, it is interesting, it could be a small scale research, but it is really interesting, and then it is new, then it is publishable. Is there anything challenging in my work? So probably you are not inventing or you are not doing a new research, but you are trying to communicate the message that during that research, what are the challenges? And that challenge could be the unique challenge, or this population was really unique. So these are the issues that you can highlight. Is my work related directly to a current hot topic? Say, for example, when the COVID-19 pandemic started, I will give you an example of my recent research projects on COVID-19. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit, so let me give you an example. So in 2020, when the pandemic started, so I was thinking, okay, so whether I can do some research on COVID-19. And I know that at the beginning of the pandemic, and I'm pretty sure the situation was the same in Indonesia, there are lots of panic. People were not sure what to do, and they were really on stress. They're locked down. There are lots of things. Vaccine was not there at the time. So there are lots of stress at the time. So I thought that why don't I do a research looking at the psychological impact of COVID-19 pandemic. So I developed a small research team, and then we started, we got the ethics approval very quickly, and then we did that study. I live in Melbourne. So we started doing that study in Melbourne at first, and then we expanded it to all over Australia. Because that is a hot topic and there was not enough literature on this topic. So I knew that it will be a very quick process to publish this. And we did that study, and I really worked with the timeline. I said, look, with my team, okay, we'll have 1 to 2 months for data collection, but in the next month, we need to finish the data analysis, write the paper. We divided the work in the team. So what happened, we started the work, and in 3 months' time, we got this paper accepted, and then in fourth month, probably it was published in one of the Q1 journal, in one of the PMC journal. So when it was published, because there are feedback and we address those feedback, but once it is published, I thought, okay, so this situation and this evidence is already here in Australia, but the same situation is happening around the world. So why don't I expand that research into the global settings? Then I try to communicate with my global partners around the world. And the one condition of this partnership was, okay, if you are interested in doing that research, you need to get the ethics approval from your local level. And if you can do this thing within a certain period of time, say within 1 month time, you can be part of this global study, and let's do the work together. And the first thing is, I told them there is no funding for this. If you can provide some in-kind support, we'll be very happy to do that research. In that way, I got really positive response from 25 countries. And I was really proud to have this connection with different countries. But many countries could not manage the ethics approval within the time. So we started working with another 16 countries around the world. So we completed that study in another 6 months' time. And after we completed that study, we published that paper with 17 countries data. So that was probably one of the biggest international study that was that happened during this pandemic. And at that time, border was closed. There was no way to travel. So I am really indebted to all of those collaborators who extended their hand without any funding support, just with this in-kind support, because all of them were really interested to know about this and to generate the evidence. And that paper was published in the global paper. Now individual countries are working on the individual papers. And so far, we also have another 5 to 6 individual country paper. So the example that I'm saying, so you need to think of what is really interesting in your topic. Is it a hot topic that you are trying to focus? And then you can decide on what type of manuscript you want to write. It's not necessary that you need to write the full article or the original article. You can think of writing a review paper. Because sometimes it is challenging to get it's a lengthy process to get the ethics approval to do the data collection. But you can write a review paper if there is not enough evidence on this. You can also think of writing a letter or rapid communication, short communication. Even you can think of writing an editorial. So if you have not that experience in publishing an original article or full article, you can start with some of the small article, and then you can go to the original article. The next thing is choose the target journal. There are some etiquette, some rules. Never ever submit a paper to more than one journal at the same time. Sometimes it seems really frustrating that we wait for another 1 or 2 months, and then they say, this paper is not suitable, you get the rejection, and you say, we just wasted 2 months of your time waiting. But unfortunately, that is the process we need to stick to. We can't send the same paper at the same time to more than one journal. And sometimes it is really important to think of which journal you are targeting. It's not just a random, okay, let's send it to this journal or that journal. Before you send to the journal, you need to think of whether that journal will be interested in publishing your paper. What is the scope of that journal? Have a look at their previous publications. Did they publish this type of research or not? The other thing is about the open access. I will talk about this later on. I will talk about the publication cost, and also think of the rejection rate. If you target a very high-ranking journal, the rejection rate is quite high. Think of the top-ranking journal like Lancet or New England Journal of Medicine. The impact factor is really, really high, but the rejection rate is also nearly 95 to 98% rejection rate. That means out of 100 papers, only 2 or 3 papers get accepted. So you also need to think of the rejection rate of the top-ranking journal. Another thing is you need to pay attention to the journal requirements, and all of these things are really available in the journal. If you go to the journal, you can look at the author guidelines, and you can look at those formatting, looking at how they want to have your article, how they want the references and all of this. Pay attention to the structure of the paper. Not necessarily that all the journals will follow the same format. Is there really standard format: introduction, methods, results, and discussion? But it's not necessary. Sometimes, they go for the unstructured format. Sometimes they have different headings, like instead of introduction, they may put the background. So have a look at the previous published paper in the journal to look at the structure. And definitely understand about the publication ethics to avoid violation in terms of plagiarism, data fabrication, and research without ethics approval. Many of the research papers I have seen, the people do research without any ethics approval, and they struggle to publish this thing in a good journal, because it is almost a compulsory requirement that you need to declare whether you receive the ethics approval from the journal for your study or not. And if you have received the ethics approval, you need to also share that information about the reference and all of these things in the submission. So these are the 6 things you need to do before you start writing a manuscript. So you need to do a little bit of background work, where you want to publish, and look at the target journal, look at the scope, understand this ethics, and then you need to proceed with the publication. The next thing is steps to organize the manuscript. So say, for example, okay, now you have gone through all of this process, you have done all of this background work, you have the data, you finish that research, now you want to start writing. So where should you start? So I'm just sharing some of those information. That is the suggested way. Not necessarily people follow this order, but it is a suggested way to start with this. So once you finish your data analysis, the first thing, and probably the easiest thing, is to start writing prepare the figures and the tables. So you can do this thing in Excel sheet, you can do this thing in Word document, but start preparing the figures and tables. And then write the methods, because you know what you have done. And then write up the results, write the discussion, write a clear conclusion, and then you should think of writing a compelling introduction. So it's not necessary that introduction is the first section. So we'll start with introduction, then we'll go to the methods, results, and discussion. So it is a suggested way that you start with these figures, tables, methods, results, discussion, and later on you write the introduction. I'll talk about each of these now. And then writing the abstract, title, index, acknowledgement, and writing up the references. So this is the suggested way how you should organize your manuscript. Now, if I go one by one regarding each of these topic a little bit detailed, so think of the figures and tables, and you know a figure is worth 1,000 of words. If you can make a good figure illustration, they are really efficient way to present your results. If you can prepare a nice table, you need not to repeat the information in the result. Whereas you will write 2 pages and you can summarize this thing in one table. The one thing that you need to think of, we really need to think of never including the long boring tables, and we should not repeat the information that is already there in the figures and tables. Writing the methods, I always suggest my students, look, so if you have some subheadings within the methods section, probably your writing will be easier. Say, for example, if you have study site, study population, sampling, data collection, study tools, data analysis, and ethics, these are the suggested subheadings you can think of following. So it will be really good to follow this so you don't miss any information. Say, for example, when we review the paper, we see the study population, but there is no inclusion and exclusion criteria. But it's important to understand the inclusion and exclusion criteria, so you need to mention those information there. Other thing is about sampling. In many of the manuscripts, when we review this, we see that people either put the sample size, they miss the sampling process, or they do the other way sampling process, they miss the sample size determination. So when you write the sampling, you need to include both information about how did you come to that point that you need 100 population to do that study. Sometimes they say, oh, we just did that study with 100. Where did this 100 number come from? So you need to explain this. Another thing about the sampling process, did you do random sampling, systematic sampling, purposive sampling, convenience sampling? You need to mention about the sampling process. Length of the manuscript, look at the journal's guide. Sometimes journals put this word counts and they don't put the page number nowadays because most of the journals publish online. But still, many journals mention that you need to have a specific word count. They don't accept more than the word limit. So have a look at these things. This is the standard way. The abstract should be one paragraph, usually 250 to 300 words. Introduction, methods, results, discussion, conclusion. So these are the suggested number of pages that you can consider to prepare your paper. Now, writing up the results section. This section really responds to the question, what have you found? And you should only mention the results that you have got in your study. You should not just mention something that your study did not address. Sometimes in the results section, we got something, we did a study with small sample of population, but we want to mention, oh, this is really applicable to Indonesian population. Your result did not come from all over Indonesia, so you can't just say your study at a certain hospital in Surabaya is representative of the entire Indonesian population until you give some evidence. Yes, it is representative because we did the random sampling or whatever the way. If you don't explain this thing, so you need to be very careful what you are mentioning. Sometimes in the research, we have some primary aims, so we get some primary findings, but at the same time, sometimes there are some secondary findings, and those are the secondary objectives. We can also present these secondary objectives in the paper, and sometimes people prefer to prepare this thing as a supplementary files. Many journals mention, oh, you can't have more than 2 tables, 3 tables, or the word count is like this, but you have number of tables. You can always present this thing in the supplementary tables, and many journals will publish the supplementary tables as an online version, so people can still access all of your results. Within the results section, you can think of using some subheadings so that people can understand, okay, so you are answering this. It is really a nice way to present. Present the logical order to tell the story. You are telling a story. You wanted to do a study. You mentioned the research objective. Now in the results, you need to tell that story. You must not input any reference in the results. Sometimes I have seen that people, the references, oh, we got this finding, and then you add those other literature saying this. No, in the results means you really need to present what you have got in your study. What other studies have found, or criticism or supporting of these results will come into the discussion section. Do not repeat what is presented in the tables and figure. Many journals are really strict. They say you can't repeat any information that is already in the table. So probably you can summarize the table, but you must not repeat the information. And follow the convention of presentation of numbers. Say, for example, in the decimal places, when you present the odds ratio or adjusted odds ratio, we say 2.96. So whether if you want to put 2 decimal places after that 2.96, or you want to present 2.7, so you need to be consistent what you present. If you want to put 1 decimal place, be consistent in your paper. If you want to present 2 decimal place, be consistent in your presentation. Next, writing up the discussion section. Here you must respond to what the results mean. Yes, you got this result. So is it the unique findings that you have got? Did your results, are your results supported by the other previous studies, or is not supported by other studies? If it's not supported, what could be the reasons? So you need to mention this. One of these things that I have seen people do mistake. Sometimes they repeat the results. They mention the results, what is already there. Sometimes they present the new findings in the discussion. Discussion is not the place where you can present something new. You must not present anything new into the discussion section. Avoid statements that go beyond what your results can support. Sometimes, we do a study and we try to generalize that study findings to the entire population. If it is not true, you should avoid that statement. You must not introduce a new terms or new ideas in the discussion, because in the introduction you have told what you want to do and what is the context. In the methods and the results you discuss that, and in the discussion all of a sudden you introduce a new topic. That is not the way that you should write your discussion. You can add some possible interpretations. Say, for example, you have found these findings are really unique in your study. What could be the possible explanation if it is not supported by other studies or other studies have not done? Say, for example, when you did the COVID-19 pandemic, this study in 2020, there are really less evidence on this, and there are really less evidence from Australia. So we need to mention what could the possible explanation. Say, for example, we found that women had higher level of psychological distress compared to men. Then we need to explain what could the possible reasons that women had higher psychological distress compared to men, because there are not enough studies during that pandemic. So you can put those interpretation, what do you think, but you really need to be careful to control your imagination. Writing the conclusion. So this section shows how the work advances the field of the state of knowledge. As I told earlier, so you need to think of what is the contribution from your research, how your research is going to add some knowledge into the discipline or into the practice. You should provide a clear justification in this section. And you can also suggest, okay, future studies can focus on this, or this study can lead to some of the policy or practice changes. You can mention this thing in the conclusion. And then once you finish writing up to the conclusion, you should go back to write a compelling introduction. So here you need to convince the readers why your work is useful. What is the problem to be solved? Are there any existing solution? What is the best? What is the main limitation? Where is the gap? And how your research is going to address this gap? So these are the information which are expected in the introduction section. So you can explain this, why your research is important. And once you finish all of these sections in the paper, then you should go back to write the abstract. And you need to follow the structure of the abstract. You need to remember that together with the title, it is the advertisement of your article. Before, once you submit your article to a journal, the editor at first look at your title and then look at your abstract. There are two essential things here. You need to present the abstract, what has been done and what are the main findings. And you always need to think of avoiding some of the abbreviations and jargon, uncommon abbreviations in the abstract. And always look at the format of the abstract. Sometimes there is unstructured abstract, so it is just 250 words without any subheading. Sometimes they expect that you will have some subheading like background, objectives, methods, results, and conclusions. So have a look at the journal, your target journal, what is the format. And the next thing is compose a concise and descriptive title. The title must explain what the paper is broadly about. And you need to remember, this is the first and probably the only opportunity to attract the attention. And in that way, remember the first readers are the editor and the referees and the reviewers. So if it is not convincing, who cares what you have done? If it is, this impression comes to the editor, probably it will not go further for review. Because remember, it's not necessary that all the papers that are submitted that go through the editorial and the review process, because it is screened through at first through the editor. And if the editor thinks, oh yes, just looking at the title, looking at the abstract and thinks, oh okay, it has merit, it is important, then it goes to the reviewers. I'll come to this point. So you need to be very careful what should be an attractive title. And then selecting the keywords that will tell about your study. So you need to select those keywords that's important for indexing. In the acknowledgement section, you need to thank the people who contributed to the manuscript, specifically the study participants. Sometimes we forget to thank them. So it is a section where you should thank the study participants, but at the same time, there could be few people who helped you in collecting data, but not necessarily they are part of the authorship team. So you can definitely mention their name and acknowledge their contribution in the acknowledgement section. The most important thing is to thank the funding agency. If you get any funding, you need to mention this funding or grant or scholarship, you need to mention this support. And the last thing is about writing up the references. And that is probably people do more mistakes in the references section. And sometimes, journal is really strict about the correct referencing style. And in the author guidelines, you can see what type of referencing that they expect, whether it is a Vancouver style, whether it is Harvard style, whether it is author date style. So have a look at their expectation. And if possible, use software like EndNote. So I'm not sure whether you're familiar with this EndNote use, but it is really good software to use and follow specific instructions of the target journal. One of these things you can also see in many journal papers, you can see if we do some research and we want to cite our own work, so that's absolutely fine, that is acceptable, but we need to avoid excessive citation, that you are not the only person, or I'm not the only person who have done that research, there are other research. So you need to really be careful not to oversight your own research or the citation of your own team. It also needs to go beyond your team. Okay, so now if we think of the steps, yes, we have considered those 6 things. We have considered the issues, how we should organize the paper. We have written the paper. Now we need to go for publication. So what are the issues that you need to consider for a publication? The first thing you need to consider about the national or international. Yes, we always want to publish in international journal, but you always need to think of whether the international journal will be interested in publishing your work if it is too local, or whether the international readers will be interested to read your paper because it is too local, or does it matter to the international audience for your research? If you think you have done a research here, and then you think, yes, it could be also applicable in some of the countries in Africa, yes, probably that is interesting. But if it is really local, you need to think of the scope of that paper. So your supervisor or mentor can guide you whether you should target the national or international journal. The other thing you also need to think of, because in public health, there are many discipline-specific journals, but there are some multidisciplinary journals. Say, for example, if you think of the BMC Public Health, if you think of PLOS One, they publish multidisciplinary. It is not specific. But within this public health, or we can also think of different disease-specific journals. Say, for example, your research on cardiovascular disease, so you can go to the cardiovascular disease journal. If it is on respiratory disease, you can go to the respiratory journal. You can go to the cancer journal. If your research is specific to a specific disease, you can definitely go there. Sometimes many of my PhD students are now working on the migrant and non-migrant population, so they can go to the migrant studies or migration health type of journal. But you also have that liberty which journal you want to choose. The next thing is about the open access or not open access. Those who don't understand the open access, that means you will pay to the journal to publish your article, but anyone can access your article free of cost. And many students can access those articles free of cost through their institute membership. Say, for example, if you are a member of, if you're a student of Universitas Airlangga, and Universitas Airlangga are a member of this publisher, so all the students and staff can access their articles free of cost. So there are different arrangements with the publisher and the universities around the world. So open access means the publisher charges to the authors and the team. And if you have funding support, so you can pay that open access, and then it will be freely accessible, and people can download this thing. So by the nature, you can understand. So if more people can access this, so the benefit is more people will cite your work. So the chance of citation increases if you publish in an open access journal. But the main issue is about the cost, because you need to pay upfront, and most of the international journals, they charge 3,500 to 4,000, even 5,000 US dollar. So it depends if you have any funding for that research or not. If you don't have any funding, there is no question of thinking of open access. Some of the open access journals, they also consider publishing from the developing countries, and then they do some waiver. Sometimes they give us full waiver. If you are from, I'm pretty sure Indonesia can also apply as a developing country. And it could be the full waiver. It could be 50% waiver, sometimes 25%. So it depends on the negotiation. It depends on the journal. So if you don't get any funding support, then it is a big challenge to publish open access by your own money. So the next option is to have not open access. Not open access means you don't need to pay anything to the journal, but the people who want to access your article, they need to pay. And it could be an individual subscription. Say, for example, you don't have any access to a certain journal, so you can have their individual membership, or the institute can have their institutional membership. Say, for example, Universitas Airlangga can be a member of that journal, and they will pay a certain amount of money to that publisher, but all the staff and student will get that free. So still you can access those articles, but you need to have that institutional membership to access those articles. So if you don't have any funding, you need to go for not open access option. And publication costs, I have already mentioned, so you need to think of the publication cost. So therefore, when you apply for any funding, we always need to include that publication cost consideration during in the budget. The next thing, I guess the most important thing and most concerning thing nowadays is about authenticity of the journal. And specifically during this pandemic, I have seen it has really increased in the number of attraction, and they are sending this type of fancy names, and all of these things are really concerning because these are not authentic journal. What they try to do, they try to put this name of international, so it immediately attracts your attention. And then they try to find out your name. So what happens once you publish your paper, if it is an open access, these predatory journals, these unauthentic journals, they pick up your name, they pick up your article, and they use your name and those article name in the email text, and they say, oh yeah, I have read your article, it is really interesting, why don't you publish here? And sometimes they say, oh, we'll publish this thing for free. You don't need to even pay. And when you think, oh wow, I'm struggling to find a payment of $5,000, and they're offering this thing free, and you can go to their website, you can find a fancy website and think, oh, that's authentic. So you need to be very careful to publish in an authentic journal. So just giving you some examples of those papers. Say, for example, the email, and invariably, almost every day, I receive at least 5 to 6 emails every day in my personal email, in my official email, just sharing some of this. And you can see the beautiful way of invitation. Sometimes they offer to write a book, and just showing you an example. You see the emails that I've started receiving: 12:44, 12:54, 2:30, 2:53, 4:30. Just a snapshot of 5 emails within 2 hours time. So they intentionally send all of these email and into a very careful not to fall into the trap. to go and publish this, because if you publish those, it will look really good. You will have this fancy article, but you will struggle specifically internationally if in your career, if you publish anything from unauthentic journals. This will be easily detected, and then your credibility for research will go down, and you don't want to put any mark on your career by publishing in those unauthenticated journals. So how can you know that this journal is authentic or not? So the first thing you need to do is journal evaluation. Go to the journal website, have a look at their information, look at the website, look at the editorial board. Who are those members? What is the review process? Did they mention anything? How many articles they have published? What is the article processing charge? The most important thing, you need to go to the journal index. You need to look at the PubMed, Scopus, Web of Science. Search the name for this journal. Did those appear in those journal lists? Evaluate the publisher. Who is the publisher? If it is a known publisher or not. Just Google. Now we can get any answer from this. So just Google the publisher name and say, is it an authentic publisher or not? You can find those information and evaluate those before you think of publishing. And if you are confused and if you don't know where to go, discuss with your supervisor. Your supervisor and mentor are really experienced. They can guide you to not to fall into this trap. The other thing that I will suggest you, and I suggest all my students, this is a really common website. I always suggest my students just go to the Simango journal ranking. Just go to Google, type Simango journal and country rank, and then you can find a database, and there's a search box on the top. You just copy and paste the journal name there, and it will give you the indication about that journal. If you find any journal name within this website, you can be assured that it is authentic. Now, this journal, this website is really fantastic in that way. It is not only showing the authenticity, but it will also show the quality of the journal. Say, for example, if you look at a journal name and it shows the quality of the journal every year, and in terms of quality, they put this thing Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. And from the terminology, you can understand Q1 is the top ranking journal. Then you go to the Q2, Q3, Q4. And in this website, you can also have some discipline specific rankings. Say, for example, the example that I'm showing here in the screen, you can see in medicine. So some of the journals, they may, as I've told you, it could be multidisciplinary. So they may show in medicine, it is Q2, but in nursing, probably it is Q1. So if you are from discipline of nursing, probably you can choose to publish this thing as a Q1 paper. But if you are from medicine, probably you need to be careful not to publish in Q2. Unless if you are thinking, oh yes, you have tried Q1, but you failed to publish, then you can go to Q2. So always try to aiming for Q1 journals. If you can't have the luck to publish in Q1, then you go to Q2, then you go to Q3, then you go to Q4. You should not start from the down, but you should start from the top. But this website is really helpful, really handy. So I will encourage you to have a look at this website. Other thing is BL's list. They list all the names, most of the names of predatory journals. So if you just go to the journal, I'm trying to show you how you can justify the authenticity of a journal. If you go to this website, you just search the name. If journal name is in this list, that means there is a concern, so you should not publish there. The previous list is, yes, is a green signal, but this list is a red signal. So just go there, you find the journal name, and you can then consider where to publish. The main thing is think, check, and then you proceed with the publication. So it's really important. You consider this thing, check, and submit before you decide to publish. Okay, open access options. I have already mentioned about the article processing charge. So that is an important thing. So sometimes, you know, you have this funding, but you don't know which one is open access or not. So that is also another website, Directory of Open Access Journals. So if you just Google DOAJ, you can find the list of journals, and you can find, according to discipline, which are the open access journals. Sometimes, you know, you have funding, but you don't know which are the open access journals. So if you just search there, you can find the journal names which provide the open access. Sometimes some of the journals, they may provide open access and not open access at the same time. but some of the journals could be just open access. They don't provide any option like not open access. So you can search the name from this website. Other issues to consider for publication is impact factor. Previously, we were really considering the impact factor, but nowadays we consider about the index journal. We also consider about the Q1, Q2 quality of this journal. But still, impact factor is an important. And one of the interesting thing you can find in the SIMAGO journal list, sometimes the journal could be listed as Q2, but it may have a good impact factor. So you need to make a decision based on the impact factor and the Q ranking journal. So whether you will go for the good impact factor or whether you still want to go to the Q1 journal. Many of the Q1 journals will have low impact factor compared to some of the journals which are in the Q2, but they have good impact factor. So by impact factor, it means indication the importance and ranking of the journal. So it is an old-fashioned, I would say, indicator to look at the journal. Just sharing some of the examples of the indicators and of the impact factors. And I'm fortunate to get an opportunity to publish in each of these journals that I'm showing here. So the topmost impact factor journal is New England Journal of Medicine. It's more than 70 impact factor, Lancet, Nature, JAMA Oncology. So these are really high impact factor journals. As I mentioned, so for the high impact journals, the rejection rate is also really, really high. Next thing is about citations that I told you. So nowadays in academia and research, we also need to look at how many articles are you publishing and what about your citation? Because citations means how many people are accessing your articles and then they are citing your work. I'm just sharing an example. I'm fortunate to share this thing about my citations. And if you go to Google Scholar, you can find this citation. You can type the name of the of any person, and you can find the citation. So I'm just sharing the citation about 32,000 citations so far that I have published the articles. Sorry, I'm hearing some background noise. So if someone is not muted.
Bu Kurnia.
Yeah, sorry, maybe the committee can mute. Hostnya kayaknya di luar ini ya Mbak Vita ya. Hostnya lepas ini.
Yuk.
Hostnya Mas Stephen. Oh, Mas Stephen. Sorry, Mr. Kunigunda, can you mute your device? Hello.
Rahman. Bapak itu coba angkat dong.
Halo.
Bapak itu coba angkat dong.
Mas Stephen ini nggak ini ya? Halo. Iya, hostnya karena hostnya hanya Stephen Bunyoman, ini nggak di share ke kita. So we cannot mute the Kunigunda. Okay, Dr. Aziz maybe can continue.
Okay, so what I'm saying about the citation, so it's important to look at the citation. So sometimes it is important that your article is, when your article is being cited by other people, so it's important.
Bisa dibantu oleh
Maaf Pak Kunigunda, tolong suaranya di mute, bisa di mute. Mas Alvin punya kontaknya Mas Stephen nggak? Bisa ditelepon ya untuk nge-mute.
Iya Bu, ini masih saya hubungi sebentar ya.
Iya. Suruh kita juga jadi co-host aja deh kalau dia nggak standby.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so sorry, Dr. Aziz.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Sometimes people forget to mute, or they don't find that mute button. I don't understand. Okay, so what I'm saying about the citations, it's important to have this citation. And one of these important strategy, I guess, to improve citation is to have multiple authors in your research team, because it's a natural tendency for people to cite their own work. So if you have a big team of researchers, specifically, it is important to have the international collaboration, because it has been shown in the research, if we have international collaborators, and unfortunately, fortunately, it has been shown if we have the international collaborators from USA, the chance of citation is more. I don't know why, but don't forget about Australia. So we'll be really keen to collaborate with you, and then it will improve the citations. So just sharing, I'm really proud to get that opportunity to be listed as one of the world's top 1% scientists in 2021. In 2020, it was top 2% scientists. And this is not my credit. This is the credit of all of my international collaborators, because I got this opportunity to work with them. And due to this collaborative work, I got that opportunity to be listed in those top ranking. So it is also possible for all of you just to sharing this thing for your motivation. So you can think of also doing more collaboration and to improve your citations. The next thing is about the authorship that I was trying to say. So you need to decide whether it's less or more. As I have mentioned, so if you have more authors in your paper, definitely they need to fulfill the criteria of authorship. But if they fulfill the criteria of authorship, don't hesitate to give them the authorship. Sometimes, I've seen in, specifically in the clinical discipline, I've seen in the medicine or nursing, they are really strict. They don't want to extend the authorship to other people. But I was always open to have more authors rather than having less authors, because if you have more authors, your chance of citations increase. So why don't you take that chance? Just sharing some of the examples, you can see the 2 pages of the first 2 pages are really list of authors. And some of the authors, specifically the global burden of disease, they put the authorship in different names, and they have hundreds of authors. So there are some authorship criteria. We also need to fulfill those. This is an ethical obligation for each of the author to fulfill the criteria. And I say MGE, they have clearly mentioned what are the authorship criteria that you need to fulfill. So an author must contribute substantially to the conception of the work, either in terms of the concept, analysis, or interpretation of the data. And they need to work for drafting the work or revising it critically. And they also need to have the final approval. And they also need to take the responsibility if there's any question on that research, they are able to respond to this. So if someone fulfills all of these criteria, they should be an author in your paper. So I've seen this thing in many parts of the world, specifically in developing countries. There is a term I have heard, it is really fancy to hear, that they say gifted author or something like this. I said, oh, what does that mean? They said, that person is really head of the department. He is my boss, she's my boss. So we really, she was not involved, he was not involved at all in medicine, but it is really an honor to give him or her this authorship, or it is really an honor to involve him. So it is not the ethical way how authorship should work. So we really need to be careful. If someone does not contribute to your research, they should not be included in the authorship. Just sharing some of the ways the authorship will work. Say, for example, even I'm working as a supervisor. I'm also working as an active researcher. So still I publish as a first author. So if the project is on you, and if you are the main person, if you contributed most of the part in the research, and if you draft the paper at first, so you should be listed as the first author, and whatever your career is. So just sharing the example. And this is the paper that I told you at the beginning on the COVID-19 research that was published at first from Australia. So you can see my name as the first author. But when I publish with my student, I always take the position at the last author. So this is a work for my student, my master student who did that research, and this is a scoping review that was published in Australian Critical Care. So I took my student went first, and I went to the last. And there's also another thing that you also need to be careful when you mention this correspondence or corresponding author. So most often only the first author puts their name as the corresponding author, but if you have contributed significantly, you can also be listed as corresponding author. So you can hold any position in the authorship list, but if you contributed significantly, the lead and the first author can decide whether this corresponding authorship can be shared between 2 or 3 people. So you can see here in my example, my student and me, both of them shared the corresponding authorship. And global burden of disease, where I mentioned, and I know Dr. Santi is also part of this global burden of disease collaborators, and this is a really good publication happens every year, and they publish in the high-ranking journals like Lancet. But they have hundreds of authors because they collect data from 204 countries. So if you think of just 2 or 3 authors from each country, so this number will go 600 authors, right? So they can't put all the names in the authors, so they put this in GBD 2019 X Factor collaborators, put an asterisk, and then list all the names of the authors at the end. Sometimes they put this in the appendix, and usually they follow the alphabetical order to put all the names. So if you have a big team of people, so you can also think of putting a name of your team and then put their names at the end of the article. The most important thing is authorship orders, discuss and decide early. I have seen lots of disappointment, lots of confusion at the end of this, and many people will not be happy to see their name in the other order. So it's better to discuss this thing before you start writing the paper. And depending on the contribution, you can decide who is going to be the first, who is going to be the last, and who will be the second, and the other authors. If someone wants to be the first author, they must lead the most contribution to that paper, including the drafting of the first paper. Now, I'm also, as I was introduced, I'm lucky to be an editorial board member for a number of international journals. So a little bit about this editorial process. So what happens when a manuscript is submitted? So it goes through this process. So authors submit the article, then the article is assessed by editor. So before it comes to the editor, it also goes through some editorial assistant. They look at the format, they look at the word count, if there's a word count, and then when it is fulfilled all the criteria, then it comes to the editor. So as an editor, when we receive an article, we review the title, we review the abstract. So if just reviewing the abstract, if you think, oh no, it is not that significant, so it gets rejected straightforward. So it doesn't go through the peer review process. That's why sometimes we submit the article and we get the rejection very quickly because it did not go through the review process. And if we think, yes, this article has merits and it should go to the reviewers, then for each of these articles, for most of those journals, we need to select at least 2 reviewers. Some of the journals recommend 3 reviewers, so we need to select 3 reviewers. Now, this editor and reviewer job is voluntary. Sometimes it is really difficult to get the 2 or 3 reviewers. So as an editor, what we do, we try to send the invitation to at least 8 to 9 reviewers for each of these papers that we received. And the system is automatic there. So say, for example, if we receive 3 positive responses, then the invitation doesn't go to other reviewers. Until we get the 3 reviewers, this invitation goes to the reviewers. And I know that reviewers sometimes are really busy, and sometimes we get non-acceptance from anyone. Then it is a problem because I need to get at least 3 reviewers. Then I need to send to another group of 8 to 9 reviewers to get 3 reviewers. So it's a hard job to find the reviewers. And say, for example, I'm quite busy nowadays, so I've stopped reviewing most of the papers. So I'm just declining. So probably the journals are not happy with me, but I can't manage all of these. So same thing may happen for the reviewers. So when the reviewers, we get the 2 or 3 reviewers, then they review and they get usually 2 weeks time. Sometimes some journals say 3 weeks time. So within this 2 to 3 weeks time, they need to review and they need to give us the feedback and the review update. So once as an editor, we receive the feedback from all the reviewers, we check the reviews. And sometimes it happens that reviewers say, all the reviewers may say accept, all of the reviewers may say major change, some of the reviewers may say minor change. And it may also happen the reviewers may conflict within that decision. one reviewer may say rejection, other reviewer may say accept, other reviewer may say major revision. So it depends on the editor to review those comments and decide whether to reject at that point based on the review, or they think, oh no, that has merit, and the authors can get the opportunity to revise their paper, and then it is sent for the revision. Once the authors submit the revision, don't think that if you get the chance to revise, your paper will be accepted straightforward. I have seen, and even it also happened to our papers, we got the revision, we revised the paper, we submitted the revision, and then it was rejected. It was really disappointing, but it also happened. So you need to be very careful that you don't miss any points that was raised by the reviewer. I'm near to the end of my presentation, so there are few tips for publishing in high impact journal. Ask those questions before you prepare your manuscript. I told you about those questions. Make your publication worthy. Clear scientific message, a compelling story. You need to tell a story to the in the paper. The other important thing is writing a good cover letter. Why you think your paper is a good fit for this journal? Any additional background information you want to add? What's exciting in the results, and what is the implication of this? Why the journal will be interested to publish this? So you need to mention all of these things in the cover letter. Do not include the abstract, because sometimes people repeat the abstract in the letter. Editor can see the abstract, it is already there. So do not include the abstract in the cover letter, but rather you give some background information, you give some context, and you mention something about what will happen if it is published. What are the potential implications in changing the policies or impacting on the policies? Write an effective results section, mind your references, as I have told you earlier. Another important and challenging thing, and it is common all over the world, is about quarantining writing time. We are quite busy with lots of things. All the academics are busy in teaching or marking or doing all of these things. Writing needs a bit of concentration, but to get that writing time, it is a bit challenge. And it also happens to us. When we start our office and we think, oh yes, okay, so I will start writing. I start writing. If the email is open, then you got an email, then you think, oh, okay, I need to answer to that email. You responded to that email, then you got another email, then you respond to that email. And then you think, oh, okay, let's check weather. Then you check weather, then you think, let's check Facebook. Okay, you check Facebook, and then give a call to your friend, wife, girlfriend, and then boyfriend. And then you decide, oh no, okay, now it's lunchtime, let's go back and I will concentrate after the lunch. And then you come back, and then it takes about 23 minutes to recover what you left. So think of this recovery time. It is really distracting. So what you need to do, identify your own writing time and include a deadline. That is really effective. I have found this effective. If you want to write something, close your door, stop checking the emails, stop the emails, and then you think, okay, within this next 1 hour, 2 hours, I will write 2 paragraphs, 1 paragraph. Or in this week, I will write a section, and every day I will write just 2 lines, 3 lines. So just include a small deadline, identify your own writing time, and stay focused. So if you have a deadline, if you know what you're going to achieve, it is possible. Otherwise, you will drag your paper for long, but still you will struggle to finish this. And the same thing for the students. You may be really busy with something else, but you really need to quarantine your time. More tips. It is also a very good practice to share your work with your colleagues and mentor and get some feedback. And always take the feedback as a positive. It's not about criticism, but it is also the way how you can improve. Share your work with your colleagues before you think of submitting to the journal. If you have not published, as I mentioned earlier, consider publishing a review article or response to an article or a letter to the editor. Try to publish in a newsletter. Consider international context if you target an international journal. Consider multiple authors and international collaboration. As I've told you, that will improve your chance of increasing citations. Volunteer with high-profile researchers. That's also another important thing. Sometimes you need to go beyond your usual duty. If you're a student, if you're a staff, if you want to improve your profile, try to volunteer and give some extra time. You need to add some extra time, and probably you will not be paid for this thing. But the thing that you will learn, that is really beneficial. So volunteer some time with the high-profile researcher at your institute or internationally. Respond to each review comment following resubmission. When you get any feedback from the revision, sometimes some of the feedback is really disappointing, and sometimes some of the review feedback is really not acceptable. We have received many feedback, like reviewer said, oh, you should follow some of the references of this article, and the reviewer put the list of the all the articles. The reviewer did not disclose their name, but when looking at the article, I found, oh, okay, so this is your article. You want us to refer all of these articles so that your citation is increased. It's not necessary that it is relevant. So it's not necessary we need to accept this, but we can decline that revision, and the editor will look at this thing. Yes, that is an acceptable way. So, but you must respond to each comment. Do not ignore any comment and just delete that comment. Not responding to that comment will increase your chance of getting rejection. Reviewers can be challenged with justification. It's not necessary that reviewer is saying this thing. You can challenge this thing if you have good justification and evidence. So it's not like, oh, reviewers, whatever they say, you need to agree. But most of the reviewers, whatever they will say, sometimes they will request you to do further analysis, further changes. And I guess all of these suggestions are to improve your quality of the paper. But if there is a sufficient justification to challenge, so you can definitely challenge with good justification. Revise and resubmit. Do not get frustrated and do not think, oh, who cares? I will not publish. Frustration will come, and it also comes to us. It is a normal process to get the rejection. Still, we get lots of rejection, and the day we get the rejection, we do not address on that day. We get frustrated, we get disappointed. We just put this away, then come back on the another day to sit and to look at each of these comments, how we can improve. Do not give up. This is really an important message. We always think frustrated, but do not give up. And at the end of my lecture, if I say this thing, you will say, oh, what did you say? I said, yes, this is the thing. There is no magic tips. Still, we are learning. We are learning by doing. We are learning by collaborating with different people. People work in different ways. So still, I am learning. So if there's anything that I told you for the last 1 hour, if that is helpful, that is the way you will learn, you will apply, and then you will work with other people, you will learn, you will apply. This is a lifelong learning process. So there is really no magic tips. The last thing is, I will say, start building your research track record. If you are an early career researcher, if you are an established researcher, if you are a student, start building your research track record, specifically on those platforms. If you don't have any profile, if you have a publication, or if you want to start publication, at least start opening up your profile in all of these platforms. Nowadays, in this digital media platform are really important, and it's a good way to communicate with people. Specifically LinkedIn, I will say you can get lots of updates, and you can get lots of updates of research in your area from different organizations. So it's really good to have this LinkedIn profile and connect with the people. If you don't have anything to share, that's fine. You just follow, you just like, you can continue looking at the other people, what other people are doing. So try to create your profile in those platforms. The last thing about the take-home message, the most important thing, quarantine your writing time. If you're a student, if you're a staff, you need to quarantine your writing time. Choose the right journal, follow the journal guidelines, frame your research story, go through peer review, either peer review with your friends, your colleagues, your mentor. And the last thing is having patience, most important thing. So if you follow all of this, I'm pretty sure that you'll be able to succeed in your career. And with this, I'll finish this. My email address is there. If you're on Facebook page, you can connect with me, Dr. Aziz Melbourne, LinkedIn, Dr. Aziz Rahman, Twitter, Dr. Aziz Rahman. I'll be very happy to be connected. And if there's any question, any point in time, you can reach me through Faculty of Public Health, or you can directly reach me. I'll be very happy to help you or guide you if that helps you. With this thing, I would like to thank again the Faculty of Public Health for giving me this opportunity. And I'm looking forward to have more opportunities to discuss with you with another topic. But I will stop here, and I'm happy to respond to any question. Over to you, Kurnia. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Dr. Aziz. It's very, very great material, and then very complete, beginning from how to write the manuscript, and then how to identify what the kind of journal, and then the last very complete, I think. And from chat, there are one question for Pak Rohim. Pak Rohim, maybe you can directly asking to Dr. Aziz. Are you still here, Pak Rohim? Pak Rohim, are you here? Oh, I think Pak Rohim has. Yeah, hello. Oh, Pak Rohim in the same room.
Yeah, which room?
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Pak Rohim,
Bu Kurnia.
maybe you can directly asking to the Dr. Aziz.
Yeah, Dr. I have a very problem about to submit article in the journal of Taiwan. Some article that I have published in the journal Taiwan, but until now, some article cannot be accepted and not published. Yes, and how to strategy? Oh, masker. Okay. How to strategy? Maybe strategy, and maybe there are how to strategy to can publish in the journal Taiwan. Yeah, Taiwan, and maybe you have you have a joke of strategy, yeah, trick, yeah, trick, yeah. Trick the other test we can publish. Yeah, in the journal.
Yeah. Okay, so the question is, if I understood this correctly, please correct me wrong. So the tips to publish more in the top ranking journal is it the thing? Yeah, in the public health. So that's the thing. So the issue is we always need to think of whether this topic is really interesting. So to go back to the topic, when you think of a project, so think of a hot topic. Now, say for example, nowadays, if I think of the hot topic, anything related to post-COVID situation, COVID vaccination, any of these things, if you can relate this with this type of topic, the journal will be interested more. Say for example, long COVID. So what's happening with this long COVID? What is happening about the post-COVID situation? So journal will be interested to publish more. So think of a hot topic. Say for example, in Australia at this moment in tobacco, so there is lots of discussion on vaping among young children, use of e-cigarettes among young children. So if you try to focus on this hot topic, your chance of attracting in the top ranking journal is more. So I think that is one of the strategies. The other thing I would say, try to have a collaboration with multidisciplinary people or with different universities within your country or internationally. And if you want to have a data from one center, rather than if you have data from multiple centers, the journal will be more interested to publish from the multi-center rather than having one center.
Okay.
Rohim, you have additional question? You still have additional question or another question? This is continue for the first question.
Okay, adapter.
Or additional?
Maybe the journalist one have limited factor about amount total of population, total of sample, and also the current issue. When the COVID-19 issue, I will write about article review. Yeah. Maybe the journal in Taiwan also article review. Article, literature review.
Maksudnya gimana Pak Rohim, kalau literatur review memungkinkan atau tidak gitu kah untuk publikasi? Pak Rohim, the voice mute, so the audience cannot hear you. Pak Rohim.
So the question is about the publishing the review papers. So specifically, what he asked about the publishing the systematic review paper, if I understood correctly. Right? So you are thinking of publishing the systematic review paper or the review papers? Yeah, article review paper. Yeah. So in terms of review papers, now there is an increased chance of publishing the review papers other than the original articles for any of the journals, but it depends on the research question. Say, for example, if you think of doing a systematic review paper that is really on the high ranking of the review, so you really need to follow some of the strategies. Say, for example, registering the systematic review protocol at first before you go to the main review. The second thing is, if it is systematic review, is really it has done in a rigorous manner. You know, the Cochrane review is the topmost review article, but we don't go to this top ranking review. But still, if your research question is worth looking at systematic review, you can look at the systematic review. But nowadays, and even for my students, what I suggest for a student specifically, it's difficult for them to publish the systematic review because they don't have that time. So what I suggest them to do, the scoping review. So scoping review is the lower grade of systematic review, but still you do in a systematic manner to find the gaps in the research. So where is the gap? And to find the gaps, they can do the scoping review paper and then they can publish it. So yes, chance of publishing of review paper is more compared to the original article. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question, Pak Rohim. Maybe from another participant, you have any question? Yeah, there is question from Pak Ismail. Pak Ismail, are you in here? Maybe you want directly to say to the Dr. Aziz. Pak Ismail, are you in here?
Yes, but I cannot open my
Okay,
video.
maybe I...
Can you just read
Oh, yeah.
my question to Mr. Aziz? Thank you.
Okay, Ismail, thank you very much for your question. I can read the question in the chat box that you have mentioned that sometimes we, yes, it is important to publish in a high ranking journal to have a good research. And some of the factors that you have mentioned, the minimum sample size and design. So yes, sample size and study design is important. And you know, if you look at the hierarchy of evidence, if you, as I was mentioning to Pak Rahim, if you have a systematic review paper, that is the most acceptable way to publish. And then if you don't have a systematic review, then you go to the lower ranking, like the experimental study, randomized control trial, then you go to the cohort study, and then you go to the cross-sectional study, and then you go to the qualitative study. So it depends on the study design. And if I think of, I'm a quantitative researcher mainly. So, but most of the studies are cross-sectional studies. That's okay. Still, there are lots of publication on cross-sectional studies, but it depends on how you have done that cross-sectional study. So there is, I will not say depending on the study design, article is screened, rather than if you do a cross-sectional study with a rigorous manner, then it will have high chance of publication. So even if you do a cross-sectional study, which is really at the lower level of the quantitative research, but still you can publish if you follow a good protocol, how you have collected your sample, how you have done your study, what are the tools that you have used to answer the research question. So the methodology is really important. And the sample size, yes, it's important to have a good sample size. And if you have a bigger sample size, it is really preferred way to do the sampling. And sometimes, you know, depending on the research question, if it is not possible to get the large sample, you can justify the reason. But whatever the reason that you put, you need to have a justification of sample size determination. How did you determine that sample size? You can go with a study of 120 people, but you need to have a justification that you have calculated that sample size based on some assumptions. So nowadays you have lots of software. You can look at the software. One of these online and free software is OpenAPI. So if you go to Google and type OpenAPI, then you can find how to calculate the sample size. If you put your study design, if you put some assumption, and then that will give you the sample size. You need to have a justification. How did you come to even a small sample size? you need to have a justification. So if you prove the justification, it is a rigorous way to publish. Hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Aziz, for the answer. Maybe there are another question for the participant. We still have about 20 minutes for the end this case lecture. If there are no question, maybe I can question to the Dr. Aziz.
Yeah, sure.
Dr. Aziz, you said that I am interested with the statement about there are 23 minutes to what is nose
Come
disruption.
back to your work. Yes.
Yeah.
Come back to your thinking.
And then how about the right time for the weekend concentration? Maybe we can in the night or in the work at office. Is it influence about the to read the manuscript? Because sometimes like your explanation, sometimes if we write in the work, there are some email, maybe we
Sure. Yeah, so I will say I understood. I understood your question. So the question is, yes, it takes 23 minutes to come back to the work, but when is the effective time to write? Whether it is at work, at home, or in the morning or evening. So it depends on the people's. Sometimes people are early bird, so they really prefer to work really well early in the morning. And sometimes they are really late bird, I will say. So they prefer to work at late at night. So it depends on the people. It depends on the staff, on the students. When is the best time to do? But as an academic, as a researcher, while we are working in this academic environment, the most distracting thing is the email that I have found. So if you open your email and if you start working on things, you will never be able to concentrate. So my suggestion is to close the window of email. Do not open the window. So the strategy that I use, and specifically when I use the Outlook calendar, because all the people can see when I'm busy, when I'm not busy. So if it is I'm in a meeting, it shows I'm in a meeting. So what I try to do in the calendar, I try to block some time, few hours, say for example 3 hours, I block this thing writing. So people know that I'm busy at that time to do something. So within this 3 hours time, I stop my emails and then I try to focus on writing. And as I told you, it takes some time to refocus. Okay, where did I leave my last sentence? What was my last thought? Okay, let's look at this thing. And then you start writing. So probably within this 3 hours time, you'll be able to write effectively, probably for half an hour or 1 hour. But you need to have the 3 hours time to block, to write something. And within this half an hour, probably you will be able to write one paragraph. But still, that is worth to write this thing. And sometimes, it may happen before you come to office or after the Fajr prayer, you sit and no one is there. So you concentrate and you write. Those certain period of time is really effective rather than for the entire day you will not be able to write anything. Or sometimes on the other way, when people at your home are and sleep and you think of, okay, I will stay up and then you will write. So sometimes, our brain doesn't work at night. Sometimes our brain doesn't work in the morning. So you really need to find out which time is really effective for you. So there is no specific answer, but you just need to give a try. And sometimes, in Australia, we try to do some of the writing workshop where we go out from here to go somewhere and then focus 3 days just to focus on writing without any work and do these things. We do try to do this once a year, but at the same time, we also have another regular workshop that is called Shut Up and Write. So this Shut Up and Write session that happens every fortnightly among the staff. So all the staff and students are in the same class for 3 hours block. Everything, email, everything, phone, computer, all this communication is blocked. You just focus on writing, and we talk about, okay, what did you write? What did you write? So this is also helpful. So you can try different strategies. There is no specific answer.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Dr. Aziz, for your explanation. Is very, maybe I can practice it.
Yes, you need to practice. You need to find out your own.
Yeah, and then this is one question for Pauline. Pauline, you can directly ask the question for the Dr. Aziz.
Thank you, Ms. Kurnia. I apologize beforehand that I cannot open my camera. So, hello, Dr. Aziz. I'm a final year student in Faculty of Public Health, bachelor degree, focusing on epidemiology. Currently, for my final project, I'm writing literature review on sickle cell disease. We all know that sickle cell disease is not very prevalent at all in Indonesia, but the reason behind it is because I would like to pursue master degree related to global health. So I thought that I might need more publications about other diseases in other places in the world. My question is, some of my lecturers are recommending me to publish the paper later in international journal. What, in your opinion, the possibility of this paper being accepted regardless of my background that came from Indonesia and not somewhere that the disease is actually prevalent? Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline, for the question. So the question is about the sickle cell disease that you are trying to do a literature review, although that it is not that much prevalent in Indonesia, whether it is possible to publish internationally or not. Now, the question is about the literature review. The way that I will look at as an editor of an international journal, I don't care where do you come from. I don't know about, we don't look at the name, we don't look at the background of the people who are submitting, rather than we just look at the topic and we look at the content. So the first thing that I will ask as an editor, if it is a literature review, did you follow any specific type of literature review? Because if you publish a literature review, you can choose some of the randomly selected articles to write. And what is the research question that you are focusing on literature review? Yes, it is not prevalent in Indonesia, but are you trying to focus something specific to Indonesia? Are you trying to look at this sickle cell disease as a whole in globally? What is new here? Why you are thinking to write a literature review? Why people will be interested to read your review? This type of questions will come at first. So if you can justify, yes, we know sickle cell disease is this. It is not prevalent in Indonesia. Probably many of the Indonesian people did not go through the diagnostic test to detect the sickle cell disease, and therefore it's important to look at the undiagnosed rate of sickle cell disease, something like this. I'm just making this up. So you need to have that significance or justification. Why all of a sudden you are thinking of writing a literature review on the sickle cell disease? So looking at the topic of the sickle cell disease is important. The second thing is, if you do a literature review, I will suggest probably think of doing a bit more structured in a systematic way. As I have told, scoping review is quite popular nowadays. So that means we want to look at the literature to find the gaps on a certain area. At first, you need to justify a question, and then you need to look at the literature. Okay, there has been lots of research on this thing. Yeah, probably in Indonesia, that's okay. But what you can say, if the research question is like this, you can say there's been lots of research in developed countries, but there's been limited research in Asian settings and specifically in Indonesia. That is the literature that we go through scoping review. And this scoping review still you need to follow a systematic way to do the search. So I will say, depending on your methods, depending on your justification of the topic, yes, you have chance of publishing in international journal. It will, they will never look at your background. They will never look at your, whether you are a bachelor student or master student, whether you are from Indonesia or Bangladesh or Australia, it doesn't matter. They look at your topic and then they will see the significance and then they will decide it based on this.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Aziz. That answers.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Aziz. We have still 12 minutes. Maybe there are one question. I think it's enough. Yeah, hello.
I hope I can join publication with Dr. Aziz because I have some. Yeah, I have some article ready, Dr. Aziz. Maybe after that, I will send my article to you, and I hope you repeat.
Yeah, so Patram is saying is about he has a number of articles to review and he wants to send it to me for the review. That's the caution that I'm saying. So yes, I'll be very happy to support and review, but don't send me a list of articles to review because I'm, as I've said, I'm really overburdened. So I'm declining all the review from different channels, but I will do one review for you. That's for sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Tutor ya.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, Bu Nyoman.
Ya, bisa saya tanya sekarang?
Oh yeah. Bu Nyoman will be asking directly. Yeah, Bu, monggo.
Yeah. Good afternoon,
Good afternoon.
Dr. Aziz. Yeah. Excuse me. I want to ask about how to publish the result of community services. We do many things about we do community services. Many things about the community services related to maternal and child health. We found many things interesting, yeah, and important. And I think this is good or important to share to the other person. Is there a certain way to publish the result of community services, Dr. Aziz?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Unfortunately, I am more on research, so probably I'm not the best person to respond to this. But there are some journals who publishes the practice or the project, so they are not focused on research, but they focus on this type of community services. Say, for example, health promotion journals. So there are a number of national and international health promotional journals. If you look at this, so they try to publish the practice. They try to publish what are the barriers, what are the challenges. So if it is not a research, they publish the practice. They publish that context. So I'm not familiar with those type of publication, but yes, there are journals who publish those community services. But at the same time, while you are working on those community projects, there is a scope to do a formal research, and the students can be involved in doing some of the research. And I've been mentoring a number of students internationally. What they are doing, and some of the universities in Bangladesh, what they are doing a student group project. So a number of students can work on a project while they will go and see and visit, and then faculty members can help them in formulating an interesting research question. So at the same time, when you are serving to the community, students can be involved in getting some of the data from the field, and that data can be published in a formal way as a research. Definitely, we need to have the ethics approval before we go for any formal research. But there are journals I know that they publish those practice, those health promotion activities, or the community services, even if it is not research.
Yeah, thank you. And maybe sometime I will ask about maybe the trick or the way to do report about the community services to be to fit for the publication.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Happy to help. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Bu Nyoman. Yeah, Bu Nyoman is many activity about community services, and I'm one of the member, ya, Bu Nyoman.
Excellent.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Aziz. I think.
Nia.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Okay, siap, Bu Santi.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Aziz, for your interesting presentation. It's very useful for us to remind about how to read, how to write a paper, and we have to focus if we are writing a paper. And you mentioned also about citation. My question is how to increase the citation.
Yeah, to increase the citation, I think the only way that I have seen to have more authors and to have those collaborators around the world. I think if that is the way, and if you just work on the hot topic, and if that matches the interests of other countries, because they will also do the similar research in their country and they will try to cite their own work. So if they are part of this big team, then think of a project where you have 30 people compared to you have 3 people. So 30 people, if they cite just once, you get 30 citations. Whereas if you get 5 people, you will get 5 citations. So that is the simple math that will work. So I guess the most important thing is if you have more, as I was saying, multi-center studies, more collaborators, nationally and internationally, it will definitely increase the chance of citations.
So it means that if we have a paper and then we can invite more, more co-author.
Yes.
Is it better than we just only have 3 or 2 writer for the paper?
Yeah, it would be good to invite them after the paper, but I will say plan to invite them before you write the paper. Say, for example, you do the project in multiple sites rather than doing in one site. So, for example, you want to do that in Surabaya, do that in Jakarta, do that in Bali or some other places. So they will do their own research, but it is a big group of research and you are including all of them looking at the same problem. And it will increase the chance of publishing in the Q1 journal because it is not on the multiple, not in single center, but in multiple centers, but it will also improve the chance. And same thing that may happen in internationally as well. Say, for example, in Malaysia, you can think of, okay, this problem is the same. So let's do that study in Malaysia. Let's do that in India. Let's do that in Bangladesh. So rather than inviting them at the paper, involve them in the research project. And you can share, it depends on the relationship, it depends on the mutual respect. So invite them and they will also invite you. So in that way, if you improve the collaboration, that will improve the chance of citations more.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much for the explanation. And thank you also for your coming, for your time to accept our invitation to come in our campus. Thank you very much.
Always my pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Bu Santi, Dr. Aziz. I think this is the end of guest lecture, and then I think still many agenda in this day maybe. Yeah, because your agenda is very strict, yeah, in Surabaya. And thank you very much for the great guest lecture, and then the material will be sent to the participant besides certificate too. And then I apologize if maybe when I becoming a moderator, there are some words for me not good, and then I'm apologize about that. And maybe finish this session, I will come back this session to the MC. Thank you, Dr. Aziz, for
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Mas Alvin.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. M.Aziz Rahman, for the amazing lecture. And thank you to Mrs. Cornia as the moderator who has led the guest lecture today. The next session will be documentation. So to all of the participants, please open up your camera for a minute. And we will take the picture together.
Alvin, please give a big applause for Dr. Aziz. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for the amazing lecture.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so dear participant, please open up your camera for a minute and we will take picture together. Okay, maybe we can take the picture right now. I will count on 3 and make the best pose. 1, 2, 3. And slide 2. 1, 2, 3. And the third slide. 1, 2, 3. All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I would like to remind to all of the participants who haven't filled out the registration form, you can click the link that already sent in the chat box. All right, finally, from the deepest of my heart, I would like to apologize if for any mistake I made today. And thank you very much for your kind attention and already participate in this guest lecture, and see you on another change.
Thank you very much, Alvin. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Aziz.
Thank you.
Terima
Thank you, Dr.
kasih,
Aziz.
Mas Alvin. Kurnia pamit ya, Bu Santi.
Oh ya, terima kasih Prof. Nyoman ya, turun. Terima kasih Bu Nia, thank you Alvin ya.
Makasih ya, Alvin. Vita,
Terima kasih kembali.
Arina, semuanya matur nuwun. Makasih, Bunia.